Ordinary Numbers by Cryptaria. Chapter 6. July 2012. Help Desk Call Center, this is Taylor. Operator 4191. This is not a secure line. How may I help you?
Will you stop moving bloody desk so I can actually reach your extension directly? Find demanding that automated system.
I really can't, Taylor answered regretfully, turning on what he named his white noise app, which masked the call from anyone who might want to listen in on the unsecure line. That is this woman in the intentions department who keeps calling me. She says it's about missing files or email problems, but I know better. What the heck is intentions, anyway? She doesn't take no for an answer, and this is the best way I can think of to get her to leave me alone.
If you give me a name, I can talk with her.
Ban huffed, though he didn't sound quite as irritated, and as if the explanation had soothed his ruffled feathers.
How's your... What is it? No, I haven't seen daylight for 3 days.
Dave, the intentions crowd are apparently a bunch of night owls. Something to do with watching the international morning news as it filmed. So I've switched up shifts. Why haven't you seen daylight? Where are you now?
I'm in Paris, actually,
he said, sounding pleased.
Or under it, to be precise. There was supposed to be, well, something happening here. Only either our intel is incorrect or I'm in the wrong bloody part of Paris. Has Paris blown up that you know of?
I haven't heard anything about it, but we're pretty isolated here at the help desk. It seems like the sort of thing the people here would take in stride, too. So it's not as if there would be any running or yelling to give it away. Would you like me to check?
Fine, Jekyll. No need. They would have put up a sign in the lobby, most likely. So then I'm going to call it quits. We're hungry.
Taylor cleared his throat.
We? He tried to ask nonchalantly. Cherie and I,
he said, pronouncing the name with a perfect French accent.
I met up with her 2 days ago. 2 days? Maybe 3. We've been sharing food, but I'm out and she's very unhappy with me.
Time flies when you're having fun,
Taylor thought bitterly. He liked it better when he thought James was stuck in the catacombs alone.
Was there something you needed? A map to the closest takeaway place?
I have an excellent sense of direction, so no need. Do you have any allergies?
Me? Taylor blamed the change in shifts on apparently missing big chunks of the conversation. Dramatic changes in sleep schedules were always hard to adjust to.
With another laugh, Bond said, Yes, Mike, you, allergies. Peanuts, shellfish, pets, penicillin, the usual suspects.
No allergies. Taylor sincerely hoped Bond wasn't going to try and send him something perishable in his usual brand of second-hand postbacks, though.
Why? I'm a field agent. I ask questions, sort of in the job description.
Bond teased.
Do you want one of these skulls? I could probably pry a few loose on the monks or politicians, or nobility. I can't recall.
I think it changes depending on who is in charge and what message they're trying to sell. And no thank you. We don't want some antiquities authority to come round knocking on my door. Then take one step inside my flat, confiscate the skull, and have me investigated for being a serial killer or something based on my unusual decor.
Taylor stopped, realizing Bond probably had no idea that every one of his gifts was proudly on display. Oops. Definitely not. Though I wouldn't have any difficulty breaking you out of the Met's holding cells. The tablet is still working perfectly, by the way, though I managed to run the battery down, I'm afraid. I got bored.
Taylor felt a stab of triumph at having successfully done a better job of outfitting a field agent than Q Branch had ever managed, with only a biggest retail electronics store and a not mechanically adept man piecing things together for him hundreds of miles away. I don't want to know how you managed to run down an extended life battery.
Cherie liked Angry Birds. Alright, I should be out of the tunnels in about an hour and home. What time is it? Daylight, you said. Please tell me, it's still breakfast time in Paris. I have nothing against French food, as long as it's not prepared here, but I love their breakfasts.
The mouse he was using to play Free Cell with creaked a little under Taylor's suddenly vindictive grip.
James let a bloody Angry Birds addict of a girl touch their tablet.
His tablet, he corrected sourly. It was James's tablet, and he could do as he pleased with it. Still, he couldn't keep the slight hint of annoyance out of his voice when he said, Yes, it's daylight here. And yes, it's about breakfast time by Paris' loosest standards. I hope you and Cherie have a fabulous morning.
One last question, and then I'll let you get back to your critical printer emergencies.
Taylor bit his tongue, telling himself it wasn't Bond being dismissive, as much as it sounded like he was. He didn't think Bond was the type to make fun of people to show off to a woman, but who knew?
What time are you off shift today?
A common enough question during their conversations. Bond seemed to use Taylor's shift times as a compass. Taylor had to give it a minute's thought due to the change. 1700, 1800, Paris time, 7 hours from now.
1800, just in time for Bond to be taking his new conquest out for dinner.
Taylor tried to dismiss the thought. He had no right to be jealous of whomever Bond spent his time with. He was a pale, skinny computer geek and, perhaps more problematic, male. Now that Taylor thought about it, their casual flirting, which came so easily on the phone, was probably nothing more than Bond's way of ensuring his cheerful cooperation. Bond didn't need to know that Taylor had a raging crush already. Let Bond think he still had to bribe Taylor with gifts and sweet talk.
Perfect. I'll brought the Aston Martin. We'll be back in London well before then.
We will? Taylor thought with just the slightest hint of bitterness, telling himself it wasn't fair to actively hate the Angry Birds addict just because Bond still hadn't braved the help desk to come and visit Taylor. It wasn't her fault. Entirely unaware of Taylor's thoughts, Bond truly said,
"Take care, Mike."
"You too, James." Taylor tapped the end call button with perhaps a bit more force than necessary, though all he got for his trouble was a sore ear. He ended the white noise app's masking routines, staring at the monitor for a long moment. Occasional stabs of vicious jealousy aside, Bond was still his friend. Perhaps even his best friend. And Taylor tried not to dwell on how pathetic that particular statement was, stuffing his disappointment, sadness if he were honest with himself, away. Taylor turned his focus back to his computer. He decided he may as well upload the white noise app to CNET now that it had run for 3 months bug-free. The user reviews he usually got from the freeware crowd always cheered him up. Getting promoted to Tier 2 tech support meant that Taylor, didn't have to pay attention precisely, but did have to at least engage beyond cycle the power, followed by explaining how to cycle the power. This particular call was as routine as all the others, and Taylor was caught up in explaining the difference between a system password, screensaver password, and database access password when he heard a commotion near the front of the bullpen. Because he had to concentrate to avoid telling the caller he was an idiot, Taylor couldn't do more than peek over the cubicle wall, but all he saw was the security guard and Iris. Then Iris pointed directly at Taylor's cubicle, and his mind flashed to that early scene in The Matrix, because the security guard, no, 2 of them, started walking right towards him. Oh no, he thought, physically feeling the blood drain from his face and extremities in panic. He never should have uploaded the app to CNET. Even though Taylor, for once, hadn't actually done anything illegal this time, they would still want to question him. And of course, this had to be the day he wore his free Kevin Mitnick shirt, even if it was mostly hidden under his button-up. To make it more annoying, someone's mobile was going off with a repetitive feline yowl, and why the heck wasn't Iris tracking them down to have them shot? They weren't supposed to use personal mobiles while on shift, though everyone did, but no one was stupid enough to leave the ringer on, much less unanswered. The yowling was moving, coming closer, and the security guard in the lead looked down with a little wince and hurried his steps. And then the yowling was right there, as the security guard asked, "Mike Taylor?" He was holding a cat carrier. With a cat. No, not a cat. A kitten. A tiny kitten. Little more than a ball of gray fluff. Yes? He asked, nervously eyeing the carrier. The security guard held out a clipboard with a tripart form. Most of the form was filled out in a familiar bold scrawl, though with pen rather than a Sharpie. "Right inside the authorization, please." Taylor hesitated, though the impatient look the guard was giving him, and the equally annoyed and fascinated looks the rest of the tech employees were shooting his way, prompted him into action. Hoping to get out of the spotlight quickly, he was halfway through scratching his name out when he realized that the inventory transfer form was marked Personal Property, Shabby, Cat, Gray, Small. And of course, the thing was authorized by none other than Bond James 007, who apparently really did have the rank in MI6 to, well, force 2 security guards to deliver a cat in what looked like a large cardboard box of cat supplies. How thoughtful, Taylor thought absently as he accepted the armload of supplies and the carrier box. There was a little note hanging off the front of the cage, which the security guard set on the desk. Taylor turned it in his fingers and saw that same familiar scrawl. She really does like angry birds. No scratches on the screen. That coding worked perfectly. 007. Taylor grinned fondly and let the note fall back onto the cage. He leaned down to peer through the door at the nearly frantic cat and, deciding, even whispering something like, "Here, kitty kitty," in the venerated halls of England's International Intelligence Operations Headquarters would be a form of blasphemy, stuck a finger in the cage and wiggled it. Jenny hissed adorably before scratching him hard enough to draw blood. Taylor yanked his hand away with a wince and stuck his finger in his mouth. He smiled. "I could see why he liked you," he told the angry creature. "Do you need to go to medical for that?" Iris asked anxiously, startling him. He hadn't even realized she was standing there. Taylor chuckled. "No, I'm fine. My friend wouldn't have sent me a diseased cat, I'm sure." Her eyes went wide. Oh, they usually call Q branch. Well, this means he was happy, right? No complaints? Oh, he complains endlessly, Taylor said, smiling. Then he cleared his throat. "Well, it's time for me to clock out and take this dear home." "Of course, no need. I'll take care with your sign out. You go, take care of her. Let him know we're delighted for the cat." She faltered a little desperately. "Iris, what's the matter?" Taylor asked, concerned at her unusually flustered state. Not much could damage her calm. It was how she had ended up a manager of the bullpen, after all. "Are you all right?" "It's good. We're fine. Fine." She smiled and lowered her voice a bit. "If a 00 is happy, then we are. In fact, I'll help you carry everything out to your car. Do you have a car? I used to do a parking sticker, didn't I? Or do you need me to have security drive you home?" Taylor resisted the urge to check her pulse. "Yes, I have a parking sticker, and I can manage, thank you." He couldn't imagine the immense displeasure of being locked in a car with security and a panicky kitten. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Oh, if you need time, take all the time you need," she said nonsensically. "Get him." She went suddenly brilliantly red in the face. "It settled in." "Right, I'm sure Sherry won't need me to take the day off," he tried to say reassuringly. "Cats value their privacy and independence, I've been told. So, she interrupted quickly with a strained whisper. "Of course, I won't say a word. You two, good night." She turned and went right for her office, not waiting for a farewell. How odd, Taylor thought as he packed up his desk and shut down his workstation. He knew Iris's job was stressful, but this was the first time he'd seen her quite so irrationally upset. Though he had once seen her throw a keyboard at a deck, and was a bad sight. He pulled his jacket on and swung his messenger bag over his shoulder. It was a trick to get the surprisingly heavy box of supplies tucked under one arm without dropping the cat carrier, but he managed. As he made his way to the car park, careful not to jostle the yowling beast, he couldn't keep the grin off his face. He didn't have the Angry Birds app yet, but he'd download it as soon as he got home. July 2012. The range lights flickered in warning before coming on at full brightness, giving Bond time to close his eyes against the sting. He stepped back out of his firing lane and pushed off his hearing protectors as the red "Do Not Fire" signs lit up. A half-dozen field agents clustered at the far end of the range, all gathered together. They left Bond alone at the lane closest to the door. He signaled to the range master that he needed 5 minutes. When he got a nod in return, he stepped out of the range and into the hallway where he hit speed dial 9. What had once been the lowest priority call on his mobile. By now, he knew the help desk phone tree menu by heart. More to the point, Taylor had clued him in on how to bypass Tier 1 support entirely, which meant he had a much better chance of getting hold of Mike directly. No such luck this time, but he made a fuss demanding to speak to Operator 4191 and was quickly transferred and put on hold. He sat down on one of the benches outside the range and switched the call to his earpiece so he didn't have to hold the phone. He listened to the cycling recording of what sounded like Danielle Marsh 10 years ago saying, "Your call will be completed in the order in which it was received. We apologize for the delay." And Taylor liked Sherry. He hoped so. Bond couldn't have a cat. With his schedule, he couldn't even have a cactus. But he wasn't about to abandon her in the catacombs. And the only person he'd considered giving her to was Meg Taylor, which was disquieting. Then he came on the line, answering as always, "Help Desk call center, this is Taylor, operator 4191. This is not a secure line. How may I help you?" "How's Jerry?" There was a pause and a mouse click that told Bond that Mike had activated the program he used to keep their calls from being monitored, even on the unsecure line. "She's truly adorable. We had a rough start with her yowling at the bedroom door when I closed it behind me to go to bed, but we came to an understanding fairly quickly, one that means she gets to sleep on my head and I get to keep my fingers." Bond grinned, momentarily distracted, wondering what Mike Taylor looked like. He'd intentionally avoided snooping. A first for him. He wanted one part of his life not covered by MI6, even if MI6 was at the root of their association. "You should know better than to keep a lady off the good pillows," he said without thinking, before wondering what the heck his brain was trying to discover from Mike's answer. No, he knew, and he quickly covered by saying, "At least she's happy now, though." Taylor chuckled. "You assume that I have good pillows, and that I know anything about ladies. She does seem to be happy, though for a few days after her first visit to the vet, I was afraid she was going to kill me in my sleep. At least I got some productive coding out of it." A part of Bond grinned at that. The rest of him tried to scold himself for it, but he'd never been very good at that sort of self-restraint. "And here I was thinking she was the second most harmless thing I've sent you, other than the mask. She can't even be £4. £4 of fury and more sharp edges than such a beautiful little thing should be allowed to have," Taylor said with amusement. "Perhaps I should invest in a mechanical mouse to keep her occupied. Or build one, with random lasers to chase and the occasional distracting noise. Wouldn't want her to be bored." Bond grinned, relieved that they got along. For all he knew, Taylor had been throwing out the trinkets Bond was sending him. Inappropriate and violation of workplace regs trinkets. Gifts in some cases, at least the ones that exceeded the ridiculously low annual expenditure threshold. Fortunately, Bond had managed to skip the last 4 ethics retraining seminars, so he could always plead ignorance of the updated guidelines if Taylor reported him. Which Taylor wouldn't. He was confident of that by now. "I think she'd love being coddled like that, but then it wouldn't. And we wouldn't want her jealous of the tablet you designed for me." "Well, if she eats the mouse, I probably won't design her a new one. I'll just build cheap new ones for her to destroy. But if you destroy your tablet, I'll definitely go back to the design board." Taylor paused. "On second thought, perhaps a mechanical mouse isn't a wise idea after all. I'm sure ingesting gears or screws would be good for her. I wonder if the ball of yarn stereotype holds true." "Ingesting yarn or string is worse. And no tinsel for her either. I'm afraid your Christmas just got boring," he said thoughtlessly, before realizing he was probably revealing that he'd actually been reading up on how to have a cat as a pet. A pet he didn't have. "I don't do tinsel. Or Christmas, actually. So don't be concerned with my unexpected change of lifestyle." Taylor jaggled. "Mechanical mouse it is. Now, if you have any tips on how to keep her from attacking my feet every time I walk past, that'll be useful. When she's older, I'll be able to see her coming. Now, though, she just hides under the couch, ready to pounce at anything in reach." Bond grinned, not caring you saw him. "That's my girl. I knew she was perfect for you the moment I saw her." An angry hissing ball of diddly attacked Kitty, probably living in his skull. "You know, the catacombs are a perfect place to hide a body. She might actually be an assassin, Kitty, just putting up with me until she finds someone better. If I go missing, you'll know why." "I'll find you," Bond promised, trying not to laugh. "Just bribe her with catnip and Angry Birds. You don't have to be scared of giving her catnip even so young. I checked. She might not like it until she's older, but it won't hurt her. We have bonded over Angry Birds. And thank you very much for that shiny new addiction, by the way." Taylor laughed. "I'll have to try some catnip for her. I've always found YouTube videos of stoned tripping cats pretty hilarious."
You'll have to make one and send me the link, Bond said, wondering if he could give Taylor his email address. Bond was in the agency's directory, wasn't he? He never actually checked. He tended to regard MI6 emails as a hassle at best and had set up his email filters to route most of them directly to the trash. He wanted to ask if Taylor was sleeping better now. He wanted to ask if he'd kept her name Cherie or if he'd chosen another name. He wanted to bring up all the things he'd read about. Microchip trackers and reasons not to declaw her and the suggestion that he could leash train her if he started early enough. But his mobile let out an alert he only heard once or twice a year. Priority call direct from him. I'll need to take this, he said, standing up abruptly. He pulled the hearing protectors off his neck and tossed them onto the bench, following with his tinted yellow eye protectors. I'll maybe go in a while. You two have fun. Be safe, James. Let me know if you need anything. I'll send funny videos of Cherie if I manage to capture anything good. He smiled, irrationally pleased that Taylor had got her name. Thank you, Mark, he said as he headed for the lift. After a moment's hesitation, he disconnected the call. The line rang over to M. 007 here. There's been an incident. We need you in Turkey as soon as possible. Transport is en route, she said sternly. Come upstairs for your briefing. On my way, Mum. August 2012. When Taylor came to work Thursday evening, having managed to get back on night shifts, he immediately felt a change in the air. Apprehension, anger, the heightened sense of vigilance that he'd experienced only twice before, when tragedy struck. Once, it had been the bombing of Station C in Cairo, an event hidden from the news services, though it had cost MI6 the lives of 3 field agents and the station chief. The other was the supposedly accidental death of an MI6 courier whose plane had gone down over the Indian Ocean. The tension in the air on those occasions had certainly spread to the bullpen, but it hadn't directly affected them other than to lower the help ticket and call volume. Iris had passed around a bottle of whiskey, and they'd mourned for their colleagues in silence. Taylor had spent the time working, fixing printers and recovering accidentally deleted files in a somber silence. His first thought was that James was currently in the field. Taylor had sent him a video of Cherie going insane over a laser pointer, but he hadn't heard back. He hadn't been worried at the time. James had warned him he might go off the grid. But now his stomach dropped, and it was all he could do to walk quietly to his cubicle without demanding information from random passers-by. He just sat down at his desk when Iris hurried over, as if she'd been waiting for him. "Mike, could you come see me for a moment?" she asked tensely, gesturing back at her office. Taylor nodded, swallowing back the flutter of nervousness that tugged at him. Of course. Perhaps it was a horrendous explosion of ink in the copy room. For once he wouldn't mind that sort of tedious job, just as a distraction. Iris escorted him in and closed the door. A bad sign. Worse, she opened the cupboard over her filing cabinets and took down a glass and the bottle of whiskey that he'd dreaded seeing. She poured and set the glass down on the desk in front of him. Instead of going to her seat, she sat in the other visitor's chair, turning to face him. "I'm afraid there's been an incident, Mike. You and 007. James Bond. He gave you the cat a couple of weeks ago." "Oh, God, no." Taylor reached out and grabbed the drink, tossing it back in one burning swallow. "He's not dead, is he?" Iris's tense expression fell. "I'm sorry, Mike. Agents Ronson and Bond are both—" She hesitated, not meeting his eyes. Taylor had known in some intellectual way that being friends with a field agent, being actually attached to one, was in some ways a terribly masochistic thing to do. They stayed gone for weeks at a stretch. They had to put themselves in horrible, ridiculously unsafe situations, and there was never any guarantee that they'd come back alive. But Taylor had told himself that what he and James had wasn't exactly a friendship in the strictest sense. They never met and only shared occasional phone calls that were typically based around Taylor helping James with a technical problem. Even wrapped in tearful, teasing exchanges as they were, those phone calls were, at heart, extremely practical. But sitting at Iris's desk now, he didn't feel like someone who had learned of a coworker's death, or even an acquaintance's death. He was familiar with grief and knew he was experiencing it now. He felt crushed under the weight of losing a very dear friend. "Oh," he managed.
I'm so sorry, she said and reached out awkwardly to pat his hand. Why don't you make it an early weekend? Go home and... Well, there won't be a memorial service, I'm afraid. There will be for Agent Watson, but the double O's... She shook her head. It's not... I think the Royal Navy may do something, and I'm written something for Navy News. She trailed off into silence as though realizing her words weren't helping. I'm sorry. I didn't actually know he was in the Navy, Taylor said inanely, looking down at his hands. A sailor? Huh. He didn't feel like he should be allowed to go early. He assumed James had a lot of friends, and if they all went home early, it might be problematic. I'll stay. Too many people trying to wrap projects. After a moment, Iris nodded. Of course. But if you need to, or if you just want to sit in here for a few minutes, I'll leave the door unlocked. She stood uncertainly. Taylor stood too. I'll just head back to a desk. Thanks. For some reason, he felt like it was deeply important that he stay by his phone. What if they were mistaken? What if James called, needing his help? What if... He shook his head and helped himself to a half shot of whiskey before he turned back to the door again. Thanks, Iris. Sadly, she nodded again and let him leave.